to begin.
Thank you, Don. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order this committee of the whole meeting of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores and welcome everybody to the chambers this evening. Everyone watching us by the live stream, we're glad everybody's here. The second item on the agenda is the land acknowledgement. I'll turn that over to Councillor Dubinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which consists of the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation. We understand this land holds immense significance to the people of Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. We appreciate those who live and work alongside us today and who continue the traditions of their ancestors as stewards of the land we are privileged to inhabit. We thank them for the contributions they have made in both caring for the land and in shaping this community. We commit to truth and reconciliation, to acknowledging the truth about what happened to Indigenous peoples because of colonization, and to reconciliation, which begins with each and every one of us. As a local government and public organization, we are dedicated to learning about Indigenous culture, to fostering a better relationship with First Nations and their people. And we commit ourselves to actions that move us forward on a path to healing, along with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation.
Thank you. Third item on our agenda is disclosures of pecuniary interest. Ask any member if you have one of those you'd like to declare at this time. Seeing none, of course, you can do that anytime if you need to. We have no additions, deletions, or amendments. No open forum requests this evening. So we're on to delegations, and we do have two delegations this evening. And I'll just remind both of our delegations that council's allotted 10 minutes for each of our delegations, and we would appreciate it if you'd hew closely to that timeline. So I'll introduce our first delegation then, and that is Greg Fryer. He's here from Habitat for Humanity Grey Bruce, and he's here to talk to us about affordable housing partnership options. Mr. Fryer, welcome, and the floor is yours, sir. Don't forget to push the button on the microphone. There you go.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight a little bit about Habitat for Humanity and proposals for housing options with us. I'm going to get this next slide. A little bit about who we are, our mission, our work, our model. So at Habitat, we build more than houses for families. We provide a handout for families so that families can thrive. And that's a key word in our mission statement, is the word thrive. We want to see families, particularly children, flourish, do well, and to prosper going forward. And many of our families that we serve come to us afterwards and say, what a relief of stress that living in a Habitat house has brought to them. Many families come to us who apply and say that they've been moving countless times over the previous years before moving in, and coming into a Habitat home, it's their forever home. And it's for them the stress relief enables them to thrive going forward. At Habitat, we fill the gap between rental housing and market ownership. So we're an affordable home ownership model, and we bridge that gap. And as we know, that gap is getting ever increasingly bigger and more difficult for families to save for a down payment, to afford a mortgage on a house that meets their needs, and for them to raise a family. So that's we're really that bridge over into that market home ownership. And what we do, three things is what we do. We build houses that are energy efficient, that meets the needs of family. We design our homes around the needs of families. Our homes are energy efficient. They're carbon free after construction, zero emissions going forward. Secondly, we engage and empower people. Through our home ownership workshops, we empower our families to be able to take on ownership and do well with as they move out of a rental that they've been in for several years. And as well, we provide a opportunity for people to come and learn about skilled trades. Our builds are classrooms for learning, and for people to have the opportunity to build their experience as well as learn. And as well, we have a volunteer engagement opportunity. Last year alone, we've had over 800 volunteers serve and provide over 13,000 hours of work with us. And then thirdly, we provide financing. So our families purchase the homes from us, the zero down, zero interest mortgage. I don't think you can get better terms than that. and it makes it affordable for families. Here's how our model works. There's 6 steps. First, families are selected on the basis of 3 criteria: the need for affordable housing. They have that demonstrated need to us. The ability to pay a mortgage, so they have an income that's stable. And third, their willingness to partner with us at Habitat. Secondly, approved applicants purchase their home from us at fair market value with a no down payment, 0 interest, 20-year term mortgage that's held by us at Habitat. Thirdly, our mortgage and property payments are based on families' income, household income, at only 25%. And so housing costs are affordable. As we know, CMHC sets 30% as the affordable housing threshold. And so that extra 5% covers utility costs and insurance that families will have on owning a home. This fourth step is as part of our partnership with Habitat, families contribute 500 hours of volunteer hours working with us, building their homes with us, building the homes of other families as well. They can also volunteer in our resource as well. Fifthly, families attend our home ownership education workshops, what I just mentioned a moment ago. And those workshops are around budgeting, personal financing, estate planning. Many of our families have not prepared a will, and they're taking on an asset that needs to be part of a will, so it's passed on to their children or other beneficiaries. As well, we teach them about home maintenance, so their value of the home is they're able to maintain the value of their home because they know how to take care of it. The last step is our mortgage principals payments that come to us each month go into our home building program. We call it the revolving fund for humanity. So every donation that's spent gets recycled through our mortgages. And so right now we hold 31 mortgages, and those payments are coming to us to help us build more homes in the future. We also retain the first right of refusal for a buyback of a home, and when a family wants to sell, so the opportunity to buy that home back. And we've just exercised that right, our board has, with 2 families who graduated from our program in Hanover. And we have 2 units there, part of a condominium, that are available for another family that we'll select going forward. And they're kept affordable for at least 20 years. That's the term of our mortgage. Of course, in a buyback situation, that term gets extended out even further. So in the case of example in Hanover right now, those families graduated year 10. So we'll have another 20-year term mortgage with the new families. So that'll extend it out even to 30 years, should those families stay there for the next 20 years. We also, part of our model is we have a shared equity component. Market appreciation is shared between Habitat and homeowners. And this avoids homeowners from taking advantage of a rising real estate market for a quick financial gain. So the first 5 years, they get 0 market gain. At year 6, they get 10%, year 7, 20%, and so on, all the way to year 20, when they'll get 100% of the market gain. So at year 20, when the Habitat mortgage is due, they're able to go to the bank and leverage their asset, their home, to get a bank mortgage, should there be a balance remaining, and as well have 100% of that equity in the home to leverage. The impact on our, the impact on our families, they're again freed from struggles and indignities of living in inadequate housing. Our children do better in school. Social housing units are made available to those waiting on subsidized rental housing. About 1/3 of our families come from subsidized rental housing, and that frees up those units for other families on the wait list. Families also reduce their dependence on social assistance as they're able, as the relief of now that they're in affordable housing, they have more income, disposable income, to help pay for the things that they relied on social assistance for, and able to set aside some savings for their children. So it's a win for families, it's a win for municipalities, as families are also paying property tax. Some quick facts: we've built at Habitat 74 homes since our beginning in 1987, serving 83 families and counting. That includes 201 children, and we want to see the impact of children in our program. So mentioned 31 families right now have a 0% Habitat mortgage with us. We continue to serve going forward. Back in 2016, we established a Model of Hope partnership with Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. And as of last year, we have built 33 homes on First Nation territory. We have 2 under construction right now at Nawash, and we'll continue to build more homes going forward. We've also started last year critical home repair program for Saugeen Ojibwe Nation to help with their need for repairing existing homes. And our 3 restores operate as social enterprise with net income covering 100% of our operating or administrative costs. Here in the town of Saugeen Shores, we have built 3 housing units. You may be familiar with these. The first one was 2002, a single dwelling unit. And in 2014, a semi-detached home was built all on Willington here. And since 2015, we've been engaging and exploring with Saugeen Shores officials and staff further opportunities Habitat can build on town-owned land here in Saugeen Shores. I want to commend Council for the adoption of the guiding principles for affordable housing on town-owned land. This provides clear direction for builders like us at Habitat and developers on preparing RFPs and going forward, and as being part of the solution of the current housing crisis. At Habitat, we're keenly interested in Council's intent to make surplus land available, and we believe that our model meets the criteria as outlined in the guiding principles. So we intend to submit some proposals as they come forth as the town identifies land in RFPs, and we're prepared also to propose a partnership with the town and a private builder developer to scale up development. There's only so much we can do at Habitat. There's only so much money we can raise and to build. And with a partnership with a builder developer, we can build more and serve more families. So I'm proposing that a 3P public-private partnership. And there's 2 models that are happening and examples with Habitat affiliates in other jurisdictions in the region of Waterloo and in Leamington, and where 3P private-public partnership is being put together. Way it works with towns property would sell or donate to the developer willing to build entry-level below market housing. And we know the threshold for ownership set by the county is $399,000. And that would be the maximum that units would be sold for. A designated number of lots would be given to Habitat for us to build on in a larger piece of property, the development, or at Habitat, we'd opportunity to purchase a percentage of the units built by a developer at a reduced price that we would in turn sell to qualifying families. All ownership units would remain affordable in perpetuity through a tool such as an option agreement, registered on title. And that's a tool that can be used, and it would keep owner or properties from increasing in value at a high rate, but it'd be controlled and going forward. And as well, all units would be sold to purchasers who will be the principal residents of, and as a condition of sale, in other words, not to investors. Town surplus land is used, so here's the win. It's a win-win for each partner. Town surplus land is used for attainable, lower priced housing built fast. Developer has reduced costs and fees and expedited approval would help them build faster at a lower price. And at Habitat, again, we're able to serve more families. So thank you very much, and look forward to any questions. Yeah.
Sure. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Pryor. I will open the floor to questions or comments from members. I just wanted to make a quick comment off the top about sort of the process and how we're working through these surplus lands. I think what you're going to hear when we go around the table is a lot of support for Habitat for Humanity and a lot of interest in working with Habitat for Humanity. But of course, as you know, we have a process that we need to work through with this. And so we're obviously not in a position right now or here tonight for sure to discuss details about that. But I think what we'll do with your presentation is we'll refer it to our staff and ask them to engage directly with you and with Habitat to talk about what you're putting on the table here tonight and see what we can do together to advance a habitat project in Saugeen Shores. I think that's something I expect that we're going to hear from pretty unanimously around the table that folks want to do. So that's going to be our process going forward here is we'll refer this to our staff and they'll reach out to you and we'll get to work on what you're proposing here.
Great,
But with that, I'll turn it over to members for questions and comments. Start with the deputy mayor and then work around.
I'll just say yes and echo what the mayor said.
Thank you.
Okay. The vice deputy mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Greg, for your presentation. And I just want to commend you and all of your board members for the great work you do with Habitat for Humanity, and bringing a new home into the lives of so many people that could be impacted here in Saugeen Shores, owning their first ever home. It's just really remarkable. I know Robert Stanley from Saugeen Shores is now on your board, and I just really want to commend you for all the great work you do. And I had a few questions, if I might, Mr. Mayor, through you to Greg. Greg, I see that over 8 years, over 37 years actually, you built 74 homes, 2 per year. If land was made available to Habitat for Humanity, is it reasonable to expect that you could pull off 5 per year? Would that take a public-private partnership with local contractors, local area contractors? You have the infrastructure in place with volunteers to build up to 5 per year. Can you just give us an idea how many homes you could pull off? And the second, I have several questions, but are they still around the $300,000 per year if built by volunteers, Greg?
Yeah, we could build 5 to 6 houses a year. Yeah.
Is it still around the $300,000 per year for a new homeowner to get into a new home?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. The 3P partnership really intrigues me. Is it fair to assume, I mean, if you brought on a local area local builder, those homes could go up a lot quicker, obviously. And have you had any, you don't have to name names, but have you had any discussions with contractors to that effect that they're showing some interest in building here in Saugeen Shores in partnership with Habitat?
Yes, we have. Yeah, we have a partnership with a developer that has changed their model to focus on building entry-level homes. He found that, this is the president of the company, found that his employees were telling him that they couldn't afford the houses they're building. And so he had to change up his model. He can't be building high-end luxury homes anymore. He needs to build entry-level. That's the market. That's where the need is. And he's able to serve now some of his employees. He risked losing them. They would move out of the area to find affordable housing. And so definitely that we have a partner that's willing to bring in entry level at or below the county's affordable housing threshold of $399.
Gotcha. And Greg, just a couple more questions, Mr. Mayor, if I might. Greg, if Saugeen Shores Council, through their surplus land policy and housing policy, freed up lands for Habitat for Humanity to come in for a build, hopefully high density, the 5 per year intrigues me, versus 1 or 2 per year. What kind of guarantee can Habitat for Humanity give to this council in the form of agreement that those Habitat for Humanity homes will be lived in by Saugeen Shores residents and not residents moving in from outside of the area?
Yeah, we could make that a condition of application that they must be a resident of Saugeen Shores.
Okay, that's good to hear. And the last question I have, Greg, if I might, Mr. Mayor, is that, the median age, let's say not the median age, but the median number of family members inside a Habitat home. What's more appealable to a first-time homeowner with your stats you have available? Is it 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom? What's your model? Do you build many? You obviously don't build 1-bedroom homes for Habitat. Are they mostly 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom?
They're mostly 3-bedroom, a few 4-bedroom. Yeah, right now. Yeah.
So,
But again, we could, we design our homes around the needs of families. So if we're able to, if there's a family that just needs a 2-bedroom, we would build a 2-bedroom.
okay. And Greg, how much?
Yeah.
Thank you.
One thing I would add is with our partnership with the First Nations, they've asked us to build our 3-bedroom home, or sorry, our 4-bedroom home model uh, with a full basement that's unfinished. So it's 2 bedrooms upstairs
Right.
with the ability to have 2 bedrooms developed or built later on as the family expands downstairs. Yeah.
Okay, how many applicants do you have on file right now from residents of Saugeen Shores who would like to get into a habitat home here in Saugeen Shores?
Sorry, Mike, I don't have that stat in front of me right now.
You have some?
We have some, yes.
Okay.
We're focused right now in Hanover because we have the 2 units there that we are trying to sell and we're in family selection right now there.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, Greg, I just want to thank you one more time. I've been a long time advocate for habitat build here, and it can't come quick enough for me. There's families out there that want to get into their first ever home, and I hope this becomes a reality as soon as this fall or a year from now at the latest. I hope there's support around the table, and I heard the mayor's opening comments. I've heard a lot of good support over the years for habitat build here. So that's hopefully we can get this done sooner than later. So thanks again for your great work.
Okay,
you,
thank
Mike.
you. So I have Halpin and then Davinsky.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I'm just so excited to hear and so happy to have you make this presentation to us, Habitat, to make that presentation. We're in a unique situation in Saugeen Shores where we have great opportunity to make a real difference in affordable housing. We have the land, we have a willing partner with Habitat, and you have a supportive council. So I'm just committed to doing whatever I can to make this a reality. My class has worked on the 2 homes that you did build in Saugeen Shores, and we worked on some in Saugeen First Nations. So I've seen firsthand your good work and all the effects of it. So happy for the presentation, and I'm so eager. This is going to be the council that gets something done with affordable housing. Thanks for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Davinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and true to your prediction, indeed, I am supporting Habitat for Humanity. Thanks for your presentation, Greg.
Thank you.
We talk of, when we think of Habitat for Humanity, we think of either single-family dwellings
Mhm.
or, in some cases, semi-detached dwellings. Has there ever been any thought to go beyond that?
Absolutely. In fact, we have a plan for an 8-unit townhome project in Owen Sound. And we want to, our policy is to maximize the land that we have to fit as many housing units on it as possible.
Okay, so if this all came to fruition, this could possibly happen here if the land
Yes.
is large
Mhm.
enough and so on?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, that's very encouraging. I think you've answered all the other questions through the Vice Deputy Mayor and so on. I can only say that I saw the multi-development in action at Saugeen First Nation that Bud Halpin has alluded to. And it serves several families, and I think you said 33.
33, yes.
33, that's incredible. And we indeed do need that here in Saugeen Shores. I look forward to you working with our staff and coming up with a positive remedy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Greg. I also visited and toured the Saugeen First Nation site a couple of summers ago, I guess it was. Really fine homes. I mean, very great quality of work. I don't know how anybody could criticize what you're doing. It provides, as you point out, so many levels, positive levels of stability And when you think about, what did I read recently? The average home in Bruce Gray now is 685,000.
Something like that, yes.
It's just unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Yeah,
So this is so fantastic, and I certainly support any way we can help you. Thanks.
great. Thank you.
Councilor Maya?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Greg. Good
Hi,
to
Greg.
see you again.
Good to see you.
And I'll just start off by saying I look forward to getting the opportunity to work on a habitat project in Saugeen Shores. As you know, I've worked on Hanover. I've worked on a few of the projects around the area, and certainly our Sparks Training Center partnership with
Yes.
Habitat is one that we're hoping that's going to result in getting lots of hands on the materials and getting houses built. I'm interested in the equity formula
Mhm.
that you described.
Yeah.
So 0 to 5 years, you get no equity. 6 to 20 years, you accrue the full equity of the home, and then
Mhm.
after that period, you can sell it for market value if
Market
you're
value,
a participant, right?
That's right.
So you described somebody who moved out after 10 years. So
Right.
does that mean they retain somewhere between the 0 and 10% or 20?
Yeah, they shared the equity with us at Habitat and themselves. So
And
they
then-
were to graduate on with some equity
Okay.
into another home, and as well have some savings for their children.
Yeah, hopefully
Yeah.
during the time they've been in there, they've been able to get themselves in a position to get into a regular market home,
That's
right?
right. Mhm.
And yeah, just what was I'm starting to forget what I was gonna say. Building on that formula though. So a person brings in no down payment, but at the end of it, they should be able to graduate out and get into a regular market, and then you can
Right.
make that available for
Right.
another qualified
That's right.
applicant.
Another
right?
applicant.
Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
formula, and hopefully, as you've heard around the table, we can put that to use here in our town pretty soon.
Terrific. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you. I think that's everybody.
That's it? Okay.
It didn't take the amazing Kreskin though to predict that everyone would support it. Because everybody, I've never heard anybody have anything negatives to say about Habitat for Humanity or the work that you do. It's an incredible organization, and we're really fortunate that you guys would come to our community and think of us as a place where you can build. I remember when we were at the sod turning for the 2014
Mhm.
project, and how exciting a day that was, and meeting the families there and how great that was. And so it'd sure be great to do that again in our community. There's no question that we have a housing crisis here, just like everywhere. And we have to do a lot of different things. There's no one solution to that crisis. There are many things we have to do, but there is no question that Habitat for Humanity is part of the solution. So we'll be eager to engage with you, and look forward to the fruits of your ongoing discussions with our staff. Thank you
so
very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. All right, so now we'll move on to our second delegation, which is from Mark Havitz, and Mark is here from United Housing for All. Mr. Havitz, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. And thanks to this town council and previous town councils for your work with respect to the housing crisis facing our community over the past few years. Since the release of the Attainable Housing Task Force report in February 2021, much has been accomplished, including approval of 800 medium to high density rental units to ease the current imbalance in local housing stock. You've also amended bylaws to encourage housing construction and contributed town funds while forging subsidized rental agreements to provide immediate short-term relief for 12 residents in 2023, and I'm told doubling that budget for 2024. These and other efforts are praiseworthy and over time will have positive impact. United Housing for All will continue lending pro-affordable housing advocacy voices moving forward. That said, much remains to be done, especially regarding the affordability component of the attainability spectrum. In fact, evidence suggests that we're still losing the affordable housing battle locally. Data compiled for our November 6th Housing Crisis Public Forum suggests that Saugeen Shores' affordability crisis has deepened rather than abated in the nearly 3 years since the release of the task force report. So in the spirit of the first of its 25 consolidated recommendations, quoting now, to conduct additional surveys and data collection at least every 2 years to refine the understanding of housing and how to address identified needs, end quote. We offer the following current realities. Some of them are a couple months old. The data aren't always coming out as regularly as we would like. The first one is that, quoting now, the Grey Bruce, Perth, Huron, Simcoe living wage region at $22.75 an hour for 40 hours a week is the second most expensive region in Ontario for low-wage workers, trailing only the Greater Toronto Area, where the living wage for full-time workers in 2023 was calculated at $25. In other words, our living wage is $6 more than the new Ontario minimum wage. A second point, only 51 of Bruce County Housing's 922 waitlist applicants, that's less than 6%, found housing during calendar year 2022. And during the first 6 months of 2023, the waitlist actually grew by a net 171 applicants. Over half, 549 of the 1,093 applicants on that waitlist mid-year 2023 are from Saugeen Shores. And of those listed from Saugeen Shores, 237 are single adults, 91 are older adults, and 221 are families. So our local challenge encompasses the full lifespan spectrum, but assuming by definition that the 221 families include at least 2 people apiece, over half and perhaps closer to 2/3 of the people on the Saugeen Shores portion of that wait list are part of that demographic. CMHC, point number 4 now, CMHC defines, quoting them, affordable housing as that which uses no more than 30% of a household's gross pre-tax income, end quote. In Saugeen Shores, as many of you know, over 45% of our renters spend more than 30% of their gross income on rent. And 18% of our renters spend more than 50% of their gross income on rent. This situation is untenable and cannot continue. So quoting now from the Saugeen Shores Attainable Task Force report, land costs are one of the most significant costs related to housing developments. Reducing land costs greatly reduces the cost of housing, end quote. 3 years ago, the second of the 25 consolidated recommendations in the Saugeen Shores Attainable Housing Task Force report stated that the town would, quoting again, apply a housing first policy to use municipally owned surplus lands toward partnerships and with private developers and nonprofit organizations that could facilitate development of attainable housing, end quote. Our current strategic plan states that the town will create the policy conditions and strategically invest to encourage private and not-for-profit housing developers to build attainable housing that's affordable to current and prospective town residents, end quote. So it was really heartening to hear town council discussing on December 18th 2 specific parcels which may soon be made available for that purpose. It was equally wonderful, maybe more so, to hear the spirited discussion on January 15th of a pending affordable housing on town-owned lands policy. You're aware that Habitat for Humanity, as you've already heard, is an organization with an established record of success working with entry-level homeowner families, and thousands of local volunteers are very interested in being part of that solution. When I sign up to volunteer on the Habitat site, and I'm not particularly useful on a build site, but I'm passable, I guess, there are over 2,000 people that are active volunteers in Grey Bruce with Habitat for Humanity. So Habitat will respond to any request for proposals, as Greg just said, regardless of the property footprint in question, up to and including partnerships with developers on high-density builds. Models like those, as he's already said, are available in several Ontario municipalities, and they could go a long way to reducing Saugeen Shores' affordable housing backlog. So United Housing for All continues to pursue its mission of raising awareness, public education, advocacy, and recommending viable solutions regarding the current housing situation in Saugeen Shores. In pursuit of our mission, as chair of this group, I believe we're making progress to our two stated goals. The first, educating our community about the housing crisis, and the second, advocating for affordable housing for all ages in Saugeen Shores. So I'd like to thank the council for the opportunity to make this delegation. And in conclusion, we'll respectively ask the following two questions of council. Don't necessarily expect a response immediately, but soon. The first is, will town council immediately upon approval of its attainable housing on town-owned lands policy designate one or more parcels of surplus land for construction of affordable, medium to high density housing partnerships? And the second question is, will requests for proposals be forthcoming as soon as practical thereafter? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Havitz, for your presentation and for your questions. I just say, in response to the questions, that council and staff are working diligently on providing you and the public with answers to those questions. Hopefully they will be forthcoming very soon, maybe even in a matter of weeks. So anyway, we're working on it, and we thank you for asking them tonight and for the rest of your presentation. And I'll have to ask if there's questions or comments from members. And I got the Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Greg, thanks so much for again, for all you do. I sit on the committee, as you know, for the United Housing for All advocacy group. Get that word out. And you know, you're great advocates, and keep doing what you're doing. I know from members of the community, we've talked about yes in my backyard versus the NIMBY is not in my backyard, which we're trying to not use at all, maybe perhaps anymore, is yes in my backyard are the right words. And that, you know, I've always said that these people that move into these habitat homes and affordable housing units, I'm not trying to stereotype here, but these are the same people that serve you a cup of coffee at the restaurant or the drive-through restaurants in town or Walmart. And again, it's not stereotyping. I'm just saying, you know, there's help needed out there in our community, and badly. And the word crisis has been used quite a bit in Saugeen Shores, probably across Canada, to do with housing. And so I just wanted to commend you for all the great work you're doing, Greg. And I'm just wondering, the one question I have of you is that, you know, with the advocacy group, is it fair to say, Greg, that you would have good success with attracting new volunteers as part of a bigger habitat build? If say the 3P partnership didn't necessarily work out with a private developer, you know, land developer, I know you've had an extensive amount of volunteer. We've done an extensive amount of volunteer work with Habitat. Greg, are people out there, you know, that would help? You know, that would help with volunteering to build a home?
So just a question, Mike, you're asking me or you're asking Greg Fryer?
I'm sorry, Mark. I said Greg, but I'm sorry, Mark. My hair.
No problem.
So Mark,
Yeah, I
let me
just
start
wanted to
that
make sure
again.
you wanted to hear from me.
No, it's you, Mark, and I just had my names mixed up. But is it fair to say, Mark, that you would be able to attract a fair number of volunteers to help with habitat high density build here in Saugeen Shores?
Yeah, I'm speaking on based on my own experience now. So Greg may be able to provide a local example, but I would say absolutely. You know, a high percentage of those 2,000 volunteers already come from Saugeen Shores.
Gotcha.
That are active over the last couple of years, and you know, getting to Nawash is a bit of a drive. Getting up to Saugeen First Nation, not so much from here, but there are a lot of people, absolutely, that talk with me every day because they know where I'm coming from on this issue, and we're out walking the dogs, and people are always asking what's up with housing,
Right.
when are we going to have a build here locally? And yeah, I can unequivocally say that based on my experience in Waterloo Region and with other affiliates, if you've got a local build, volunteers and money follow.
Mhm. Well, thanks again, Mark. And I know you've done great work. You formed this committee, the Housing for All Committee, and I don't know how long you're staying there, probably for another year, we hope. But um, when you in your report, you talked about that the application wait list going from over 300 up to 550, and that's a disturbing number, alarming number, really, for people on that application wait list for Bruce County. And I'm pleased that you and your committee recognized that this council did support $150,000 in the 2024 budget to go towards housing subsidies. That's 22, 23, 24 families we're going to assist with $590 a month is a lot of money for some people who are struggling. And so hopefully this council can support additional funds in 2025, 2026 and onward. So I'm glad you recognize that, Mark, because I think that's a pretty important decision council's made here with those housing subsidies. So it's more than just housing subsidies. It's Habitat for Humanity builds. It's a lot of other things where we just need to get that list from 550 down to 0. So thanks again for all your great work.
And we know there's a lag, obviously, with time, with the 800 approved rental units. I don't think more than 10% have actually been completed at this point. And so obviously we're going to have a lot more coming on board, and hopefully we're going to see that cost of housing start to drop.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. This council and this staff is really in gear working towards solutions on this now. And staff has declared land surplus. Staff is working on a process to set land for those 3P partnerships for attainable housing. We've also discussed at the table land for perhaps a future Bruce County geared to income rental build. So there's many facets in many areas where we are moving forward on this. And we want to see those wait lists get down and get going in the correct direction. And as I said, we're in a unique position because we do have the land. We have willing partners, including yourself and Habitat, and staff and council seems to be in unison working towards solutions on this right now. So thanks for your presentation. We're listening. We're trying. Thank you.
Thank you. The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And through you, thank you, Mark, for the presentation. One of the goals you mentioned was related to education and information. And I think every time you present to us or there's something in the media coming from your group, it does provide encouragement to every resident of Saugeen Shores to feel like they can play a role in all of this. It's about understanding the problem, understanding the issue, and contributing to the positive talk about it all. And I think every time that this comes up, I hope that developers are listening to and understanding that there's a market available to them too, to contribute to the solution, that there's an awful lot of people that potentially would be interested in specific kinds of builds if they were willing to entertain those kinds of builds. So I very much appreciate you being here again tonight to provide some education and information that I think goes a long way to just stilling the whole conversation in the community. And I'll just echo the two members who spoke before me in saying that, I think there's a willingness around our table this term to really accomplish something. So it takes time, but I can see that it's rolling along in a very positive direction. So thank you again.
Thank you, Councillor Mayat.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the presentation, Mark. You talked about several different models. You talked about obviously the one that Greg referred to in his presentation, which is the partnership between the government, local government, Habitat, and perhaps a private developer to build houses for ownership purposes. And obviously ownership is the preferred way to go. But in your report number 4, you point out that many people are paying above the 30, 40, 50% of their income towards rentals, purpose-built rentals, or homes that are owned by private landlords and individuals. And I'm wondering how many people on your committee are landowners, landlords, if you like, that have real life experience in what it's like to put your own money, perhaps your life savings, many do, into a property with the hope that will grow in value over time and end up in a profit situation. How difficult that is now, and how can you expect people to, developers or individuals, to buy a property and then rent it out to at lower than what it costs them to carry? It's just, that's the difficulty these days for being a landlord, is the cost to get into that business is very high, and you can't very well rent an apartment for $1,100 if it's costing you $1,800 to buy it and carry it, right? So is there any experience in your committee on that? And if not, maybe you should invite some property owners to come on and give you some real life experience in what it's like to be a landlord.
Yeah, fair point, Dave. Appreciate it. I can't answer how many on our committee have been landlords in the past. I'd be surprised if the answer was none. I've not been. But I do know that a lot of the measures that have already been taken are going to make a difference. And we clearly have had a supply imbalance, for example, with respect to rental apartment units in this town relative to demand. And so I think that in itself, part of the market solution, the market will eventually correct itself. But it's jumped up considerably, and I, while sympathetic to certainly to people that have made major investments and own property, I'm also sympathetic to the 8 guys, I will say, living at the end of my block in a single house, because that's the only way they can afford to live in the town where they work. So, I think, and this is not a Saugeen Shores problem per se. It's not a Ontario or Canada problem. They're talking about the same thing in the U.S. and probably most Western countries. And I think the system has gotten a bit out of whack. We could blame it on COVID, and I'm sure that's part of the thing, and probably part of it is the changing demographic and people like me, baby boomers that are moving out, and so on and so forth. But it's darn complicated. I'll just close by saying, when I started volunteering at Habitat, and we were only building about 10,000 homes a year. Now they're putting 7 million homeowner individual people. That would include multiple people for family, but 7 million a year now. And the goal of Habitat for Humanity was to eradicate poverty housing worldwide. I know about 20 years ago they had eliminated poverty housing in Sumter County, Georgia, which is where Americus Georgia is, where Millard and Lyndon Fuller, the Habitat founders, were originally from. And I thought at the time, naively, geez, this is actually going to happen. Not in my lifetime, but the last 3 years, it's gone entirely the opposite direction, and it's way bigger than Habitat. It's very complicated. So I appreciate the comment, and I will say we have invited a developer, and we plan to invite more developers and builders to our group, because part of the education process starts with us getting educated as well. Part of our subgroup on homelessness spent much of last year delving into that issue and educating themselves before then hosting the public forum that they had. And we need to do the same thing with respect to this. So it's a real fair point. And I wish I knew more about it. And we'll do our best to learn more about it.
Can I follow up? You hit on a lot of good points on what is exasperating this, as you point out, a worldwide issue with housing, and another component of that, along with the demographics, is the upsurge in short-term rental, Airbnb. I looked today and there's some 350 Airbnb units available in the town of Saugeen Shore. So that's essentially, there's 350 cottages, homes, apartments, suites that are sitting potentially vacant, that before that phenomenon came along would have been on the rental market, right? So it's, and the reason that we have that business going is because the demographics, the baby boomers, I guess, and many others are willing to participate in that market. There's a market for it. Landlords wouldn't use those platforms and rent in those ways to get $300, $400, $500 a night for their properties if there wasn't a market for it, and there certainly is. And the demographic situation in the world has created that market, and unfortunately, that's where we find ourselves in this crisis that's been created. So I hope that we find some solutions, and I hope your group continues to do what they do and find some viable solutions. Thanks.
Thank you. As you can tell, this is a matter of significant concern to us as much as it is to you. I dare say that we talk about this probably almost as much as you do at United Housing for All. And it's a matter that we've been seized with here for several years now. And you're starting to see some of the fruits of those efforts. Those 800 units you referenced, some of them are under construction. Building permits have been issued for several hundred more, likely to come under construction in the spring. And I appreciate you mentioning that it really is a national issue. We have just been chronically underbuilding housing in this country for not just since COVID, but for decades, right? And we've reached a point where, because of certain things like COVID and other pressures, where it's just come to a head. And so, we're trying to turn that ship around. We have some things that we can do at the local level, and really Saugeen Shores is willing to do just about anything we can do that's within our authority to move housing forward. And we have done a lot of things, and we have much more to do. And we're even going so far now with the community permit planning system at looking at completely almost upending our planning regime in order to encourage housing at a faster rate. So there's much we can do there. We can also make use of our surplus land. We're big landowners, and we can do that as well. But in the end, we have our piece that we can influence, but there's other slices of this pie. And it's a thing that you've given me a platform to say this tonight. And I just came from the Rural Ontario Municipal Association conference, and it's a hot topic, let me tell you, among municipalities everywhere in Ontario. And much of the conversation there was about what role do other levels of government have to play here. And there is a role, and they need to play a bigger role. This is a national issue, which tells me it requires a national solution. And what we need is money from the federal government primarily, and also from the provincial government focused on housing, building housing, money to construct social housing, geared to income housing, affordable housing across the country. It's a good investment for the federal government to make because it will be deflationary in nature. When you build more houses, it will reduce the cost of housing. Instead of putting cash in people's pockets, building houses for them is a smart investment. And the federal government, the provincial government aren't there yet in terms of how much money they should be spending on this and the help that we need. And let's not forget too, we rely so much on the private sector to build housing. When interest rates are very high, their ability, it's not a question of willingness, their ability to go to banks and get loans is diminished significantly. So if we're going to get construction projects off the ground at the rate we need them to get off the ground to turn around decades of underbuilding housing, we're going to have to put money out and get housing built. And it's a smart investment, and the feds in the province should be making it. And in the meantime, you can count on the town of Saugeen Shores to continue to do everything we can do inside our space of regulatory and landowner authority to move this forward as best we can and to house as many people as we possibly can in our community. And just to conclude, I just say thank you to you and to United Housing for All and to everybody you're working with for your advocacy. It helps us with our work and it helps the whole community get its mind around how we're going to advance and solve this problem. So we really appreciate your work and appreciate you coming in tonight to talk to us about it. So thank you.
We appreciate the invitation and we'll do our best.
Thank you.
We will, we'll be part of the solution moving forward as well. So thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Okay, so we are finished with delegations then, and we will move on now to reports of municipal officers and committees and 8.2 staff reports. And the first staff report there is the council remuneration review, and we'll turn that over to the clerk.
Great, thank you. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. As part of the Corporate Services 2023 business plan, the Clerks Division contracted Gallagher Benefit Services to conduct a council remuneration review. Unfortunately, a conflict arose and Jane Mizanski was unable to attend this evening and sends her regrets. The report from Gallagher contains a lot of information, setting the stage for how the review is conducted, current state assessment of the town relative to this project, and methodology for such reviews. Going directly to page 3 of the report, Gallagher reviewed current pay for 10 municipalities similar to Saugeen Shores. These same municipalities are used for non-union staff market salary reviews. The review proceeded using a pay policy as the middle of the market philosophy expressed during the 2019 non-union staff market review. The position of mayor is ranked very closely to the pay policy with a difference of only 0.5%. The deputy mayor position is ranked as being near the middle of the remuneration chart, but has a gap of 12.5%. The vice deputy mayor position does not have a comparable position in other municipalities and therefore does not have any data for comparison. The largest gap is for the councillor position, which has 23.3% difference, but like the deputy mayor is ranked near the middle of the remuneration chart. The review also included other administration expense and benefits practices in the town of Saugeen Shores compared to the same 10 other municipalities. The town is mostly on par with the other municipalities. The consultant has provided 6 recommendations, which include 3 options specific to base remuneration. If approved by council, a bylaw would come forward implementing option 2 for the base remuneration of council, a non-union salary administration policy will be brought forward for consideration of an amendment to align the review periods to every 4 years starting in 2026. And staff will include the preparation of a council remuneration and expense policy as part of the 2025 business plan. The 2024 financial impact of implementing option 2 would be $34,000 and bring remuneration for members of council within the range for the pay policy. Almost emptied out council chambers when I started this report, but I won't take it personal. Both the Director of Corporate Services and I are available to respond to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I found it riveting. The recommendation, I'll read the recommendation, then we'll take any questions or comments. The recommendation is the council adopt a bylaw endorsing the recommendations contained within the report provided by Gallagher Benefit Services Group Incorporated with base remuneration option 2 effective January 1, 2024, and that council amend the non-union salary administration policy to align the non-union staff external market review period for every 4 years starting in 2026 and adopt an amending bylaw, and the staff be directed to prepare a council remuneration and expense policy for council consideration through the 2025 business plan. Questions or comments? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And through you, I won't be supporting the recommendation because I don't believe option 2 is appropriate. I think option 1, which would maintain the current rates for each of the roles, is acceptable in advance of the other situation occurring, which is the council remuneration and expense policy. I would agree, though, that the annual economic adjustment for 2024 is valid. And I also agree with the idea of aligning the review thing to the 4-year situation for council and the non-union salary staff administration policy. But I don't think it's acceptable right now to adjust pay situations for members of council when the other aspect, which includes very real conversation about, what we do and how we do it and how we participate. I think all of that is relevant in terms of determining appropriate honorariums or pay rates for us. So option 2 would in fact increase, mine by 7%, the vice deputy mayors by 10%, and council members by 17.3%. I just find that a little bit difficult to understand right now, and so I would be more in favor of us applying option 1 with the annual economic adjustment for 2024. Anticipating this council remuneration and expense policy will come before us, hopefully sooner rather than later. 2025 seems a long way out. I had hoped that that would happen along with this, but certainly I would hope and like it to happen during this year, because I think that that's relevant information that could play into this. And, we have also talked about the size of council and that sort of thing. So I think there's a whole big conversation that we're not having, and I don't think it's the right time to just jump everything up by some pretty significant percentages. The annual economic adjustment is okay for now, pending the other part. Thank you.
So I can clarify the deputy mayor's her point to staff. If council were to choose option 1, the economic adjustment would occur anyway, right? Like council receives the annual economic adjustment. No decision is required to enact that, correct?
Through you, Mayor Charbonneau, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. So I have Councillor Mayette and then I have Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, I would be supporting going with option number 2 for several reasons. We allowed our remuneration, we allowed this remuneration policy to slip during the COVID years. I think the last term we took a pretty prudent approach to the remuneration, given the fact that we were under pretty significant times during COVID rather, and we were trying to keep our tax rate to 0, and everybody who was sitting around the table at that time thought it was prudent that we maintain kind of a status quo, and as a result of that, we found ourselves certainly in the councillor ranks at 28% below or 23% below the average, to get into the 50% quartile plus 5. And when you look at also the number of meetings that we attend as compared to the comparator municipalities, average being 18, and the number of meetings that we attend is 28, as reported in the report here. So I think it's time for a catch up. I mean, I can only speak personally about the quality of councillors that are attracted by this rate of pay, and I think it's been allowed to slip. Just being facetious. I think it's wholly appropriate to adopt option number 2, and it's time that we remunerate the people that do the hard work around here and attend many meetings and do lots of work outside council meetings, and I would be supporting the recommendation of option 2. Thank you.
Councillor, I would just caution you against comments about other members of council and that making council comments of that nature. Please don't do that again. Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I'm going to side with the deputy mayor on this one. I think for now I'd be happy for that option, and let's just go through the whole process and everything. I'm one to always talk about we got to tighten our belt. We have to watch our bottom line and everything like that. I would just go for option 1. I feel good about doing that. And that's where I'm at with this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Davinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We just spent a good hour talking about affordable housing and about the people that are in rough shape because they can't get a house or they can't find suitable living quarters. And then the very next item we have on here, at least for councillors, Option two, hey, why don't we give ourselves a 17.3% hike? Never mind housing, we'll give ourselves a 17.3% hike. Can't do it. I can't in good conscience do that, knowing all the other things that are going on. So I too will be voting against option two. Thank you.
Okay, so just so we can, from a standpoint of process here, you have a recommendation before you, which, as you know, suggests advancing with option two, and then two other bullets there. I think what I would suggest members do is propose some amendment to this recommendation rather than defeating it. The other, if your concern is only the option one versus option two, because the other two bullets have merit, I think. I haven't heard anybody speak against wanting to advance those items. So I think I would suggest to you offer some amendment to this recommendation rather than defeat it, because that kind of leaves us nowhere on the rest of this. I'll take your input. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm disappointed that we are not moving ahead more quickly on the issue of expectations, what would be prepared and studied in number 6. And I don't know how much that study would cost for the consultant. But I'm wondering if, I mean, I'm perfectly fine with a COLA raise. I agree with my colleagues who said it's appropriate, I think, for us to just do a regular cost of living increase for this year. But I'm wondering if we could put some money towards that expectations aspect and include that as something we work on in 2024, as opposed to waiting till 2025.
The clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. Just with regards to item number 6, there was no intention from a staff perspective to put funds towards that. That was going to be something that was going to be done by staff. The reason why, that's part of the reason why 2025 is the timing that was provided. The 2024 business plan having been approved by council previously. That's why that came forward in discussions with the CAO. If there was capacity within the clerk's division to advance this sooner in 2024, that would be the next priority to include that in quarters 1, definitely, but quarter 2 and 3 are fairly well at capacity, we'll say. But if there is capacity to include this in Q4, starting this in Q4, that would have been our intention, if it was possible to start it earlier.
I see Councillor Halpin's hand. Councillor Halpin, do you have a comment?
Yes, Mayor, and through you. Could I make a amendment to the motion to go with option 1, the cost of living allowance for the time being, and then have this presented back to council in the following year?
Okay, so Councillor Halpin moves that where you see option 2 there in the recommendation that be replaced with the words option 1. Is there a seconder for the amendment? The Deputy Mayor, any discussion on the amendment? Councillor Mayat.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll not be supporting this amendment. I think we're doing a disservice to future councils, because the more and it's not an easy thing to do, to vote yourself a raise essentially, but by allowing us to slip further and further down the scale, all the other municipalities that are our comparators here are doing the same thing that we're doing, and we're clearly falling below, while our municipality is getting larger, and what's expected in meeting attendance and committee work and board work is getting larger. And so like I said before, we've we've been strategic in the past and deferred keeping up with the median. And by doing option number one, we're just putting ourselves further behind, and future councils down the road will not get the remuneration that's appropriate for the work that we do. I've often said that we don't do this for the money, but if there was no money, we probably wouldn't do it. I mean, it's one of those things, and it's not a great deal of money when you look at the remuneration package as a whole, and the impact on the overall budget is fairly minimal as well. I just think that we're not being prudent. We're not doing we're doing a disservice to ourselves and for future, the ability to attract quality candidates in future elections is clearly tied to this. So I will not be supporting it. And I think if we adopt this, that I personally think we're making a mistake. Thank you.
Thank you. The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And through you, number 6 in the recommendation would still stand, which would create the ability to prepare a council remuneration and expense policy. I would like to see it happen in at the very latest Q4 of this year, but it's there, it's 2025. That still is a year ahead of the next election. So it does provide the opportunity for the information and the discussion to occur, which sets up what Councillor Mayette is talking about. And it would be, I believe, still well in advance of the actual next election to create, the opportunity that maybe seems to be missing, or to create a little bit of excitement about, hey, this is what it means to be on council, and it's a pretty decent gig, and here's the expectations and here's the recognition, both in terms of just being on council, but also the salary situation. So I don't see it. I don't see going with option 1 has necessarily stopping all of that. It's just slightly delaying it, but I think there still would be enough time for it to impact the participation in the next election. Thank you.
Councillor Grace.
Thank you. I'm wondering if Councillor Halpin would accept an amendment to his suggested amendment. I mean, the concern I have with with number 6 is saying that would come in the next year. And I have already expressed my hope that this whole issue of attendance and expectations and policy, conforming to policy and making expectations clear, is something we can try and get done this year. So as long as there's a clear understanding that that's part of our amended recommendation, then that's what I'd like to try to make sure.
It is possible that we can change language, but we'll go to the CAO first to see what she has to say.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just mindful that tonight we are working to approve the 2024 business plan and start undertaking that work. And already we're moving items. I think this is the 3rd or 4th item into the 2024 business plan that wasn't considered. So we heard from the clerk that that resources would be tight to move that council remuneration and expense policy forward in 2024. So I guess I would say to council that I would offer that there's maybe 2 considerations. One, that they consider funding a consultant, as was mentioned earlier, in order to move that forward in the timeframe they'd like to see, or that we come back with a comment on what the impact to the 2024 business plan would be to move this up. I would offer that something would need to shift.
So before we get too far into discussing the business plan, we do have a motion on the table to amend for option 1 for option 2. I'm going to call a vote on that so we can get that settled. And then we can move on to discussing this other piece. So we have a motion. It's been moved and seconded, moved by Councillor Halpin, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that we remove the language option 2 and replace it with option 1 in this resolution. So I'm going to ask all in favor of that. And opposed? That's carried. Okay, so now on the question of the, so the language in the last sentence of this recommendation is that it be, that staff be directed to prepare a council remuneration and expense policy for council consideration through the 2025 business plan. It's that last 4 words that are concerning. I look to members, if you've heard what the CAO had to say, I would suggest that we should heed what she's saying about staff's capacity, but if you'd like to ask staff to come back with options to advance it more quickly, that's certainly something that we can do, the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, and through you. Perhaps I was remiss, but it was my understanding that, when we asked for this in the first place and, the idea of a consultant was being given as a way to see it, I thought the consultant was going to do that part. So I was surprised when it didn't show up in this document. It's my understanding, though, that the amount of money that was allocated for the consultant to do what we did receive came in under budget. So, technically, there is a little bit of not a huge amount, but a little bit of consultant money perhaps available there. But I agree with Councillor Grace, and I can completely understand about the business plan and scheduling and stuff. But I really think that when we initially provided a little direction about this, that it was the number 6 part that we had asked for information too. So it's information that we wanted, and it somehow or other got missed in the way that it was conveyed to the consultant. And I would welcome the opportunity for staff to provide us with some options to realize something sooner rather than later, and reserve judgment on, whether or not we push for it or until we hear something more concrete with options. Thank you.
So I might suggest that a motion to amend the resolution to the effect that staff be directed to prepare a council remuneration and expense policy for council consideration and report back to council on options to advance that as quickly as possible. Councilor Matt?
First thing is a point of order. Can we amend a motion that we already voted on?
We haven't voted on the main motion yet. We amended the motion, but the main motion
Oh,
has not been
okay.
voted on.
Second is, if we engage a consultant to do what's described in section 6, do you think the consultant would cost more than $34,000, which was the impact of the option 2 on the budget?
We don't have an answer to that question yet. The CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, I wouldn't have a specific answer to that question. And I'd just like to clarify, I think that when this was put in the 2023 business plan, it was looking at a market comparable for the salaries. So I don't think that there was a miscommunication, but I do think we can approach Gallagher and get a cost to undertake what they discovered and brought forward is that we needed to prepare a policy. So they would have seen that when looking at our comparators, that they had policy in place, we did not. And we can take a look at best practices around that, and we can get a cost from them to do that.
So we're not making any suggestions at this point as to whether we're going to hire a consultant or what we're going to do. We're just going to ask staff to come back with recommendations on advancing the council remuneration and expense policy as expeditiously as possible. Anybody want to make a motion to that effect, or do you have another idea, Councillor Grace? Yes, Councillor Grace will make the motion to amend it to that effect. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Davinsky, any discussion to that amendment? Everybody understand? Yes. Doesn't see any discussion, so I'll ask all in favor of that. And opposed? That's carried. Okay, so that's amended. So the main recommendation is as amended. You've read it there, and so if there's no further discussion on the main motion as amended, then I'll ask all in favor of the main motion as amended. And opposed? That's carried. Okay. So now we're moving on to the asset management policy update, and we have our asset management supervisor here this evening with that report.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So in 2019, council passed the town's first asset management policy. That policy put us on the path to meeting asset management requirements and implementing good asset management practices that we continue today. The 2019 policy, as well as the provincial regulation, requires that the policy be reviewed every 5 years. And this led to the work to draft the updated policy that is before you this evening. This policy update is also part of the 2024 Business Plan Division highlights for engineering services. The 2019 policy provided a solid base that has held up well over time. As a result, most of the main content, including objectives and principles, are unchanged in the recommended draft. The main changes that are reflected in this new 2024 policy submitted to you today are the reformatting and restructuring of the document to comply with the governance documents framework policy for corporate policies. The 2019 asset management policy did not outline which town assets would be included in the asset management plan. The new policy has included this information, which can be seen in section 4 under scope. The updated policy also includes a corporate asset management framework. This illustrates how asset management is incorporated across the organization. This can be seen in section 6.3 titled Corporate Asset Management Framework. And finally, the asset management staff responsibilities were added under section 6.7 responsibilities. I would also like to note that the drafting of the updated 2024 asset management policy included review and comment by the Asset Management Committee, which consists of staff representatives from various town departments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So there is a recommendation that council approve the revised asset management policy. Questions or comments from members? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. Just at the very end there, you mentioned about a committee. The staff responsibilities includes mention of asset management staff and an advisory committee. I'm just interested to know beyond, and I am not able to just accurately say how many people are considered asset management staff off the top of my head, but who would come into that mix on the advisory committee that wouldn't be somebody with asset management, perhaps in their job title? What adds to the staff to make it the committee level?
Yep. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the committee is currently made up of a number of directors and managers across the organization, including the Director of Corporate Services, the Director of Development Services, as well as some managers from other departments as well.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Councilor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Jessica, for the report. I really like the way you organized it and identified where the changes were and the specific sections of the report, and laid the groundwork in terms of the legislative requirements. And it's very easy to read, and it's a really important topic. So it's good that you made it easy for us to digest. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments? Yeah, I mean, I'll just echo those comments. Thank you so much for your work on this. This is some of the most important work that we do. And to have now included all of those different asset classes and to know that we are actively working across, it's essentially everything. The list I read is everything that we own, right from fleet to parks to facilities and everything in between. And but having an understanding of that so that it can come to council and so that we can budget appropriately for the coming 10 years to manage those assets, ensure they remain in place to serve the public. That's critical work. And it's work that we're doing better now than we've ever done before. And some of the information I've received recently tells me that it's work that the town of Saugeen Shores is doing better than a lot of municipalities across this province. So that's because of you and your staff. So thanks so much for your work on it. And if there's nothing further, then I'll ask all in favor of the recommendation. No, I don't think so. Not in committee of the whole. All in favor? That's carried.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are now on to communications and petitions for the committee of the whole. 6 items there. Questions or comments? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I think there might be something in item number 4 about from the town of Mono with their road safety emergency resolution worth at least taking a look at, because it does relate to how a number of fines associated with traffic offenses have not changed for decades. So they're not really a deterrent, maybe as much as they could be. And also there's something in there about a better solution in terms of collecting unpaid fines. And here in our region, there's I believe about $2 billion outstanding in terms of unpaid fines. So there might be some merit to taking a closer look at number 4. And also number 5, which is about a situation in a community much larger than ours, but it does relate to how municipalities engage contractors and potential liability issues and language that's in another document. So I think there's some merit for us to take a little greater look at their resolution from the greater Sudbury area, just to see if it might be something that we would support too. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Davinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, number 4, which the deputy mayor has alluded to, I remember reading it and I wrote down, can't hurt, common sense. So I think we should support this effort to increase the fines.
We'll certainly entertain motions to support any of these at this time. So if members care to make such motions, now's the time. Councillor Grace. Councillor Grace.
Thank you. I also found the Sudbury resolution really alarming. And I'm not quite sure, I don't know if this is something that the CAO has more information about, or, but to me, I think this is really imperative that we look into this and support it, I guess, if it's appropriate in staff size.
You have a comment, CAO?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This came out, I want to say 2 or 3 months ago, the decision on this, and I agree it is quite alarming. And I think anything that we can do to get some clarity around it would be very helpful.
Anybody want to make a motion to support it? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Davinsky to support item number 6, the correspondence and resolution from Greater Sudbury. If there's no further questions or comments on that one, I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Any other comments on any of these items any of these communications items? Deputy Mayor?
I would offer support too for number 4, which is basically encouraging the province to take a good look at road safety educational programs, reviewing and increasing penalties to reflect a deterrent amount and consequences that sends a message driving is a privilege subject to conditions. And it's about some use of equipment in the community without having to declare a community safety zone. It's about recommending also that municipalities, and in our case, it's a region, have a better means of collecting outstanding provincial offenses, fines and victim surcharge monies, which, it's a very large pool of money that sits uncollected. So I would recommend we support this resolution.
So it's moved by the Deputy Mayor to support item 4, the resolution from the town of Mono. Is there a seconder? Councillor Davinsky. Any further discussion? Councillor Mayette?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I would suggest that that number 4 should be referred to the Police Services Board so that the police service professionals can maybe have a look at it and make comments as to see the applicability as it pertains to Saugeen Shores. And then maybe come back with a follow-up motion if if they feel the same situation is happening here and that it's prudent to make some changes, or if there's perhaps by making some of these recommended changes, there might put a burden on the police force. All those things should be considered before we blanket. Even though on the surface it makes sense, there are recommendations that could have impacts on staffing and the work of the police.
Okay, so that's a motion to refer. Is there a seconder for the motion to refer to the Police Services Board? Seconded by Councillor Grace. That motion takes precedence over the first motion, so we can debate a motion to refer, right, Don? Is there a debate on a motion to refer? No debate on a motion to refer? All right, so we'll ask all in favor of referring the matter to the Police Services Board. That's carried. Okay. Further questions or comments on any of these items of communication? I have just one that I would like to comment on, which is the letter from the Ontario Provincial Police West Region. That's in response to a letter sent by myself and Chief Melanson asking for greater support. We've sent a letter both to the OPP and to the Canadian Coast Guard same letter asking for greater support for marine rescue. I was disappointed that the OPP didn't know that Southampton, the town of Saugeen Shores, no longer has an auxiliary Coast Guard unit. That's something they should know, particularly since they're in the business of marine rescue, that you'd think they would know what resources are available to support them. I know the chief is in the process of communicating that fact to them. But the fact remains, and you can see it here in their letter, that they have Coast Guard units in Goderich, Tobermory, and Meaford, full-time units. And there's Kincardine does have an auxiliary Coast Guard unit, but they're not able to respond here. They're not large enough to do that, and nor would we expect them to. So the fact remains that we are pretty underserved when it comes to either OPP or Coast Guard response to marine issues in our community. And I note here too that they say, as you're aware, the Saugeen Shores Police Service does not have a marine program. And that's for good reason, because it's not in our jurisdiction. It would be like OPP having a Quebec program where they go and police in Quebec or in Michigan. We don't do it because it's not our jurisdiction, and you can't just traipse off into other people's jurisdiction to do things. So again, it's their jurisdiction. It's their responsibility to patrol it. It's their responsibility to ensure it's safe. And I think it's their responsibility to do more to serve the water off the town of Saugeen Shores, the water off Sauble Beach, the Saugeen First Nation. These are big, busy beaches with a lot of marine activity, and they should have a better presence here. Or if they cannot do that, then provide some funding at least to support increased activities on our front on these things, just to abdicate that responsibility and say, we're in Goderich, we're in Tobermory. It's not good enough. So we're going to have to continue to pursue this. I know we will. And I certainly appreciate Chief Mellinson's work on this. He's been a strong advocate on this front, and thank you to him for that. Anything else on the communications? If not, then that brings us to the end of the committee of the whole. So we'll go around the table and do statements by members, and we'll start with the deputy mayor.
Thank you. Only one thing. Excuse me, last Friday, I attended the Clean Energy Summit. And once again, it was a very worthwhile day, just listening to a lot of good news about things that are happening and potential to happen. And certainly it's, the whole area of medical isotopes is just an amazing thing to imagine. So any chance we can get to encourage, support, cajole, or whatever, anybody to even talk about it, I think that will go a long way, because we have the potential to be a region that really champions that in Canada. There's no reason why the material coming out of the Bruce Power site has to go to another continent to be processed. It's the possibility is here. So it was a very encouraging day. Thank you.
Thank you. The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just wanted to say a big thank you to Barry Kisselbrink from Barry's Construction. Recently donated $50,000 to Lamont Sports Park, and it was nice of the Kisselbrinks and Barry in particular, and Stu Doyle, of course, is no stranger to our community. And that $50,000 goes directly towards the pavilion picnic shelter out at Lamont Sports Park, and the Bruce Power suppliers donated $225,000 to the pavilion. So we're at $275,000 now. So hopefully, I think it's in the 2025 business plan, I believe. So hopefully the Grey Bruce Home Builders and Trades Association will come forward and help build it, and we'll get that pavilion built as part of that phase 2-3. So I just want to thank Barry Kisselbrink tonight, Mr. Mayor, and I asked him if that was okay if I thanked him publicly, and he said yes. Didn't want a photo. He said it was okay to thank him, so I wanted to do that tonight.
Very good. And we certainly echo that. Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And as you alluded to earlier, you and I were able to attend the Roma conference this past weekend and Monday and Tuesday. And it was certainly I thought it was a really good conference. There was some tremendous speakers. Some of the sessions that were held were really informative. The opportunities for networking and collaboration were great. The trade show was really good. I got a lot of good information in there, which I hope to share with staff or other councillors as appropriate. And that was really good. And Additionally, yesterday I went to the Southampton Playhouse, Blue Water Playhouse open mic, open forum showcase. And it too was very entertaining, very well attended. It was almost a full house. There was quite a variety of entertainers there, and if anybody hasn't had the chance to attend, they do it monthly, I believe, last Sunday of the month. It's a really good time. Once again, lots of good conversations and good entertainment, and a fun time had by all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to commend staff in two ways, besides everything wonderful that they do all the time, particularly with our snow event last week. As usual, we do such a good job on snow removal and snow control, so thank you for that. And I also want to thank our development services staff for the public meetings on downtown parking at the Southampton Town Hall and at the Plex on Tuesday. And then there's another virtual one coming up, I think, on Wednesday. So thank you for doing that. And I just wanted to particularly say that having the Q&A sessions, I think, is really important, and it's very effective. And I know that the public appreciates that opportunity. So great work.
Thank you, Councillor Davinsky.
What Councillor Sherrill said. I was at that meeting, the parking strategy meeting, and indeed the questions were super. There was a great turnout at the Southampton Town Hall, and they had a lot of interesting questions. So I don't know how it went in Port Elgin, but I assume it was the same. And now we have the virtual meeting going on. So if you say you haven't had a chance, well, then you haven't worked at it, because staff and everyone doing their utmost to make sure everybody has a chance to say something. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Halpin.
Thank you. I'll pass for tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Just a couple things, as Councillor Mayette mentioned, we were at Roma earlier last week, and that was a good event, and there'll be a report coming to council on that with more information, and so we'll share that at that time. But I think it was a really good Roma conference this year, and I think I would just say at a high level that I think the Rural Ontario Municipal Association, I think my impression is doing some excellent work advocating for us on some important issues. So I was very pleased to see that. I was also at the Clean Energy Frontier Summit, as the Deputy Mayor mentioned, and that was very good. I wanted to mention Bill Streeter, recognizing Bill Streeter at the Heritage Committee a few days ago was really a positive thing, a fun thing to do, and just wanted to, in this forum, thank Bill for his work on the Heritage Committee. I know he's going to be missed there, but also for his work across our community. He's a pretty exceptional guy, and I was pleased to recognize him. And on Saturday this weekend, I went to a Bruce County Playhouse thing too. I went to Charlotte's Web at the Port Elgin United Church, and I just wanted to express how much I enjoyed that. What a great production, community theater in our community. A lot of young folks in that production, and it was great to see. Made me miss doing things like that. I wish I had more time to do things like that. Unfortunately, I don't. But anyway, it's still running, I think, next weekend. So I'd encourage everybody out there to get to see that if you can. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Grace, seconded by Davinsky. All in favor. The committee stands adjourned, and we will reconvene at 20 after 8 for regular council. Okay. Oh, I don't know. I guess I don't see. Oh, there he is. All right. Okay, so we're going to call to order this regular council meeting, and the second item on the agenda is disclosures of pecuniary interest. You have my sheet there? No. Sorry, I have one to declare. It actually isn't an item on this meeting, but I'm not going to be present at the meeting where this item's going to come up, so I'm going to declare it now. It's to do with zoning bylaw amendment 2023-056, which will be considered by council on the 20th of February. I have an indirect interest pertaining to zoning bylaw amendment Z 2023-056 on the basis that I have a shareholder interest in a property lying within the statutory notice area for the application. For the purposes of that meeting, the deputy mayor will chair. Are there any other pecuniary interests to declare at this time? I don't see any, so of course you can do that anytime if you need to. We have no additions, deletions, or amendments to the agenda, so we're on to minutes, 3 minutes, 3 sets of minutes there to adopt, and the resolution is that council adopt the minutes of the regular council meetings of January 5th and January 8th, 2024, and note and file the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of January 8th, 2024 as presented. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Grace, seconded by the Vice Deputy Mayor. Questions or comments to those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. All right, so no public meeting this evening, so we're on to close to public, and we're moving into close to public regarding matters in accordance with the Municipal Act to discuss personal information about identifiable individuals for committee member appointments for the Municipal Heritage Committee and the Environmental Ad Hoc Committee. And the resolution is that council move into a close to public session in accordance with Municipal Act 2001, Section 2392 as follows. B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Grace, seconded by Halpin. All in favor? Council will move into closed session now, and the folks online will go to your link, and we will move to the committee room. Okay, it looks like we've got everybody back here, so we can arise from closed and hold on a second here. So I don't need a resolution to arise from closed, do I? No. Get confused here. All right. So we are arising from closed session, and I can report from closed that council passed the minutes of December 11th, 2023 and January 8th, 2024. And we do have some business arising from closed. The following resolution. The council accept the resignations of William Streeter and Katie Rice from the Municipal Heritage Committee and appoint Linda Dahl and Mary Ferguson as members, and that council appoint Odette Bartnicki, Dan Dychuk, Kathy McIntosh, Brent Proud, and Victoria Sandre as members, as citizen members, and Cheryl Grace and Bud Helpin as council representatives for the Environmental Ad Hoc Committee, with Cheryl Grace serving as chair. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the deputy mayor, seconded by the vice deputy mayor. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried, and thank you to all those members of the public and members of council for your willingness to serve on those committees. So we will move on then to a report of the Committee of the Whole. There is a resolution that one, council approve the continuing education policy, and two, that council receive the winter conditions road closure location inquiry report for information. Is there a mover and seconder for that resolution? Moved by Grace, seconded by Helpin. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. And now we're on to reports of municipal officers and committees. And the first one is committee report for the accessibility plan 2024 to 28. And the resolution is that council approve the town of Saugeen Shores accessibility plan 2024 to 2028. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Grace, seconded by the deputy mayor. Questions or comments? The deputy mayor.
Thank you, and through you, just perhaps a slight correction to the plan. On page 5 of the plan, it sets out the committee composition. It should indicate 2 council representatives and 1 alternate council representative. It only shows 1 representative and 1 alternate. There are 9 members on the committee, so it's just a slight correction there. Thank you.
Councilor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Currently, there's 1 council representative and 1 alternate, me, and the chair, Rachel. There are 2 council representatives and I'm the alternate of those 2.
The committee has a terms of reference, yes? And the term, and does what's in the plan conform to what is in the council's approved terms of reference in terms of representation? You could just strike it and reference the terms of reference passed by council in terms of the membership, because council may make different choices in terms of representation. I do know in the past where there have been, I don't think we're limited. We have a minimum number, but not a maximum number of representatives, right? And so council in the past on some of these has accepted more applicants if there has been more applications. I don't know if the thinking back over the years, I don't know if the number of people we appoint to this committee has always been consistent. I wonder if we've appointed more or less over time. But we'll turn it to the clerk. Now that I've vamped through that, the clerk can give us the real answer.
Thank you through Mayor Charbonneau, and thank you for stalling. Yes, so the exact wording in the terms of, in the mandate are that that the Accessibility Advisory Committee shall consist of no more than 7 volunteer members, including 1 council member, and an alternate member of council shall also be appointed to fill a vacancy of the council representative.
And so what we're considering here say? The same. 1 council representative, 1 alternate, which is what's in the terms of reference. So it conforms with the terms of reference. Okay. If the reality on the ground is different, then I think we need to make sure we're conforming to our terms of reference. The deputy mayor.
Well, I'm just, normally we have odd numbers for committees so that there's less potential for a tie vote. And looking at the minutes from the Accessibility Committee, both Councillor Stack, who chairs it, and Councillor Gray show up as voting members. So I guess my concern was just, normally alternates only attend when they're replacing a council member. I understand what you're saying, so I'll withdraw my comment, but we do have 2 members of council who speak and vote at accessibility meetings.
I think, so just first and foremost, I think this conforms with the terms of reference, so I would recommend council approve it. As such, I would also say that as you know, I've been a member of the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and as you know, these committees often operate in a bit more loose fashion than we do, for sure. And I don't blame them for that. So I think we kind of set this up. These are the terms of reference. If the committee wants to hear more voices or consider more input, then I think that that's within the latitude of the chair of the committee and the committee itself to decide. So I think, but for the purposes of tonight's discussion, I think we're in line. We're lined up. The clerk.
If I may, thank you, through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So certainly if there's an issue with a committee where someone who does not have voting rights is voting, which my understanding is not what's happening at the Accessibility Advisory Committee, but I will look into it further. If necessary, then we can take a look at it as a procedural matter and discuss it further with the various committees if required.
Councillor Grace.
So, Mr. Mayor, I will fess up that I do tend to attend most of the accessibility committees, even though I'm an alternate, and that I do vote. So I will stop doing that from now.
Okay, I really do
But I'll
think
probably continue to attend.
I really do think we shouldn't make too much of it. I think these committees work really well, and if they do, if they consider more voices then, or more votes even than perhaps is in the terms, I really don't think it's the end of the world. I think they do good work, and we shouldn't be too concerned about that. Is there any further questions or comments on the report here that we're considering now? I don't see. I just want to say thank you to staff for the work on putting this together. It's a really important thing that we do every 5 years to make sure that we have an accessibility plan, largely pertaining to our operations, to make sure that we are accommodating people with disabilities as best we can and in accordance with the law. And so I appreciate the Clerk's Department's work on making sure that we're up to date, compliant, and that we're doing everything we can on this front. So you've heard the recommendation, or the resolution, I should say. I think it's been moved and seconded. So I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Next is a staff report on the 2024 budget follow-up, and Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the last meeting, there was Council Resolution 10/2024, and it incorrectly identified the Southampton Business Improvement Area levy as $57,500, and bylaw 3/2024 correctly identified the levy as $58,700, a difference of $1,200. And that relates to the transfer into the reserve account that they had included in their request. So the bylaw was correct, and the $1,200 issue with the resolution. Also, at the last meeting, there was questions surrounding the bylaw that we had on the temporary borrowing. And this is just to confirm that, as I stated in the meeting, that we have not drawn upon that line of credit. We take it every year. It's available to us, but we have not actually had to use money out of that line of credit over the last 5 years. Be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. So there is a resolution that Council adopt bylaw 3/2024, authorizing interim and final tax levy rate, including the Southampton Business Improvement Area levy amount at $58,700. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Davinsky. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right, item 3 there is a staff report on the Beachside Cafe lease agreement. I know the manager of Parks and Facilities is here. Any comments on this from the manager at all?
Good evening. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Is the routine lease renewal. It's going to be for another 5 years with similar terms as the previous lease had.
Okay, so there is a resolution that council pass a bylaw to authorize the execution of a lease agreement between the town of Saugeen Shores and the operators of the Beachside Cafe for a 5-year term. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the deputy mayor, seconded by the vice deputy mayor. Any discussion? Seeing none, sorry, I do see some, the vice deputy mayor.
Just for a little clarification, and I support this motion to approve for 5 years, but perhaps the Director of Community Services or Frank can verify for me and for council. The Harbor Light Restaurant, operated by Joan Johnson for many years. I'm not sure who operates it now, actually, but was that recently renewed for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years? I'd just like to know what that was renewed for. First of all, that's my first question, and I think it's around $7,000 or $8,000. And related to that, the Harbor Light, is it owned by the town or the Johnson family?
So we're considering the Beachside Cafe.
I know, but
Okay.
okay. Just trying to do it.
Well,
I'm just trying to do a comparable, but I'm leading to something here.
okay, do you have that information on hand, the manager of Parks and Facilities?
We don't have the amount on hand, but we can get it for you. In terms of ownership of the building, neither building is owned by the town. They're owned by the tenants.
That was my question,
Both
Frank.
Beachside Cafe and Harbor Light.
That was my question. So the Beachside Cafe is owned by who then? Sorry.
The Beachside Cafe is owned by the leaseholder in this report.
Okay. And okay, if you could sometime get for me, Frank, I'm supporting this recommendation for 5 years. I would just like to know what we renewed the Harbor Light restaurant for recently. I think it was I thought it was 1 year, maybe not though. If you could get that for me, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Yes, we'll do.
Thank you. Are there further questions or comments? I guess it's always important to remember that each of these is sort of a unique situation, and different properties are subject to different situations. I just saw actually from the director that it was a 5-year renewal for the Harbor Light restaurant.
Okay. Good.
Okay. Anything further? Seeing none, then I'll ask all in favor. And opposed? No. Okay, that's carried. All right, and so then we'll move on to item 4, staff report on the Chantry Senior Center lease agreement. Any comments on this one, the manager?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. This is again a lease renewal for the term of 5 years, and there are minimal changes. One minor housekeeping change was that we did add this facility as the alternate emergency operations center if required, but all other terms are similar.
Thank you. So there's a resolution that council pass a bylaw to authorize the execution of a lease agreement between the town of Saugeen Shores and the Chantry Center Board of the Chantry Senior Center for a 5-year term. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Councilor Grace, seconded by the Vice Deputy Mayor. Any questions or comments on this one? Vice Deputy Mayor.
Sorry about that. I'm just wondering in the lease agreement, Mr. Mayor, through you to staff, if one day the lands are developed in behind, whether it's for pickleball courts or basketball courts, and that master plan we're doing for Jubilee Park, does this agreement give any rights to the leaseholders for the Chantry Senior Center for those lands at the back? Do they have any say in what happens in behind?
Manager?
No, they don't. It doesn't speak to that in this lease. It just speaks to the building itself.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? I think this is a really great lease, really great organization. Senior Center does great work, and also the partnership that we're developing around the secondary EOC, I think is great. It's going to see some upgrades to the facility. It's going to benefit the whole community, but also benefit the senior center. So really pleased to see this one renewed, and I certainly wish the best to the board at the Chantry Senior Center. So if there's nothing further, I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Okay, so now we are on to bylaws, and there are 3 bylaws there for consideration. Anyone want to consider any of those individually? Don't see any requests for that, so I will read the bylaws then. It is The resolution is that bylaws 3, 2024, 9, 2024, and 10, 2024 are hereby read a first, second, and third time and finally passed and sealed this 29th day of January, 2024. Is there a mover and seconder? Grace and the deputy mayor. If there's nothing further, then all in favor. That's carried. All right, and then on to the confirmatory bylaw. It's resolved that bylaw 11, 2024, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the town of Saugeen Shores, is hereby read a first, second, and third time and finally passed and sealed this 29th day of January, 2024. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Davinsky, seconded by Mayette. All in favor? That's carried. And finally, I have a resolution that this regular council meeting of January 29th, 2024 hereby adjourns at 8:49 PM. Mover and seconder, the Vice Deputy Mayor and Councillor Grace. All in favor? Council stands adjourned, and we'll see you guys later.
Buenas noches.